The recording on. Hey, I want everybody to grab a piece of paper, grab a blank piece of paper and put 3 columns across, or yeah, put 3 columns on the piece of paper like the one behind me here with an I at the top of each column. Right. An I at the top of each column. Oh, so it looks like Lynn is a dog lover. Lynn Healy is a dog lover as well. Interesting. We have pet lovers on this Tuesday night event.
I have 2 Dobermans sitting right next to me.
Zeus and Thor, I hope. You know, when you have 2 Dobies, they should be named something Greek mythically. Kind of like Thomas Magnum, right? You remember Magnum PI? That's what I think those two Dobies were. Coach Lizard 1 and Coach Lizard 2. Yeah. And Amy has attacked German Shepherds. You have attacked Dobermans. I wonder what's going on here. Somebody said they had a Staffy. Who has the Staffy? Somebody had a Staffy. All right, here we go. You have 3 columns, one with either I. Grab a pen. In this first column, I want you to write single words. And here's the statement I want you to complete. I am, and write something. Single word. I am. Put a word down. And then do it again. I am. And put another word down. Same column. Again, I am. And put another word down. And let's keep going. Let's see if we can get 10 or 12 words, 15 words. I am. And put another word down. Then I am. Get another word down. And then I am again. How many I ams am I at already? Who's got a long list? Who wrote a word every time I said I am? 5? We're at 5. Let's keep going. I am. Whatever comes up with your unconscious mind, trust your inner voice. Just listen inside. I am. Write another word. And then I am. Or as Popeye would say, I am what I am. I am. See, Lynn in Texas understood that. Gave away your age, Lynn. I am. Write another word. I am. What are we at now, Larissa? 10?
I'm faster when I'm not a coach and directing someone else.
Oh, there you go. Who knows where we're at? 10, 11? I am. One more. I am. Okay, so that should be a pretty comprehensive list of who you are. Right? There's 12 I ams. If another word comes up or 2 words comes up right now, add them to the list. You know, sometimes, oh, I forgot I am this too. I am. All right. And there were no constraints on that. There was no context. There was no form. It was just I am and what came up. In this middle column, I am going to ask you specific questions. I want you to write down specific answers to those specific questions. And here we go. What did you do between the time you woke up and 8 o'clock this morning? Write that down in this column. So what did you do? Don't get too personal, but you know, what did you do when you woke up this morning? Did you meditate? Did you reach out to others? What did you do from the time you woke up to 8 o'clock? All right. What did you do? Then from 8 o'clock to noon hour, what did you do? Write down all the activities.
More time. We have lots of stuff that we do in a day. Like,
well, cool. Write like hell. From wake up time to 8, now write from 8 to noon. Write all the things you did before 8, and then from 8 till noon, write and write all the things you did. Yeah, and when you finish 8 to noon, do noon to 4 p.m. So all the things you did between 12 and 4. Write and write and write. You guys keep writing. Lee, we're doing an exercise where we have an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper with 3 columns and an eye on top of each column. Right now, we're doing the middle column, which is writing down everything we did from the time we woke up until 8, and then from 8 to 12. And right now, we're on the period 12 to 4 p.m. So write down all the stuff you did between 12 and 4, all the things you did.
And this is just today.
Sure.
Okay.
It's Tuesday. It's a pretty indicative day of the week. You know, if we did broad plus minus population surveys, Tuesday would be within 95% confidence 19 out of 20 times. Okay, then from 4 till 8. So today from 4 till 8, part of the time you're sitting here. But before you got here, what did you do?
That hasn't happened for me yet.
There you go. So what are you going to do tomorrow? Well, you know, yeah, there you go. Good on you. So if you don't want to do tonight, do last night. What'd you do from 4 till 8? My experience is most people do 80% the same things every night. Now they might go to dance one night and karate the next night, but they're doing kids' errands. If you have kids, if you don't have kids, you're doing pretty much within 80% similar activities. Now, what do you do between 8 and midnight? And because Lee made this challenging, what do you do between 8 and midnight on a normal day? What do you do between 8 and midnight on a normal day? And just keep filling out those 4-hour spots. And hopefully between midnight and when you wake up, you're sleeping. All right. Cool. Lee, on the first column, I said the 2 words I am, and then the first word that sprung to mind, people wrote it down. I am, and they just trusted their unconscious mind and wrote a list of 10 or 11 or 12 or 15 I ams. I am, and then just a word. You don't need the I am in front. All right, everybody's got a list of all the stuff they normally do between the time they wake up and the time they go back to bed. Very cool. Now, let's do the third column. Let's do the third I. Imagine for a moment that you're experiencing your future you. This is the person who, based on last week's, got their business going, understood their avatar, understanding the somagic service they're providing the planet, and they've been for 10 years, they've been changing lives. Theirs and others, they're leaving big footprints so that, you know, go out and see your future manifest 10 years from now. And then write down what comes to mind when I say, now you're 10 years in the future, successfully doing what you're meant to do, having left footprints in the sand. I am. What word comes to mind 10 years in the future? I am. What word comes up? And just trust it and write it fast. I am. Write it fast. I am. Write it fast. 10 years in the future, you've left big footprints. You're accomplishing what you want to accomplish. You're living the life you want to live. I am. And then again, I am. Rachel's counting for me. I am. How many am I at, Rachel? No idea. There you go. So again, this is that future you. This is that future you that has come to fruition. All the hard work you've put in has paid dividends, and you're doing what you're meant to do, creating the change you want to change. And I am. What word do you put out there? All right. So while you're finishing that, this is the introduction point to our conversation on values tonight. Woohoo! This is where we're going to start the value exploration. Now, here at Inspired Outcomes and in our teaching PACE, so for Lynn, maybe you heard Tara talk about PACE, protocols for coaching, protocols for achieving coaching excellence. We don't do value-specific work with a client until we've done a whole bunch of house cleaning with the client. So in our standard 12-hour process, we don't do values until we're at hour 9. I'd never elicit values from a person who's hurting, and I focus on trauma work, so I never elicit values from what I call, quote unquote, a broken person. I want all of their adverse childhood experiences healed. I want their traumas healed. I want their phobias healed. I want their limiting decisions minimized. And then and only then, I want to elicit their values, because I want to help a person get there congruent with their values when they're at their most resourceful self. I don't think there's any value. There's no value in playing with people's values when they're hurting. Because when you're hurting, and again, I work with traumatized people, their number one values are, inevitably going to be safety and trust, right? But once we heal the traumas and clear that, it might not be there. Might be, but it might not, right? Their values will be different. So that's sort of a precursor for those of you who know our work or who've studied with us. We do values later. There are other schools of NLP that think conflicts are vested or problems are vested in their values. And that may be true. That may be true. But if they are, I still want to work on those problems. And we'll talk about potential problems and values in a moment, after the person has had their negative emotions from their past cleared. So the exercise I just did was an aha moment for me. And I believe, this is the world according to Alan, that we actually have 3 eyes running all the time. That we have 3 eyes. And when you're doing values, whether you're doing your own values or a client's values, you better know which eye you're talking to, right? Because I think you should actually, I think the eye you should work on is really, really important. So this eye, the first eye, I am, and the word came out, I call this our techno-rational eye. That's the eye we tell ourselves and others who we are. Most importantly, we tell ourselves. I'm wonderful, I'm beautiful, I'm incredible, I'm talented, I'm smart, I'm caring, I'm compassionate, I am the light, gag me, right? But it is, and in this most recent edition of Psychology Today, bam, with that striking cover on it, the title is here, Self-Deception. Self-deception, and this leads into our value conversation. And I'm now going to give away my age. Bam, here we go. Book. All right. Here's a quote. Storytelling is a ubiquitous feature of our social interactions. As these researchers noted, we're always telling our story, not only to others, but significantly to ourselves as well. If our personality truly shapes those stories and even alters them, the question then becomes how closely the events as we recall them actually conform to the experiences as played out in our life. The techno-rational I am. I am more succinct sometimes I call it the techno-rational bullshit we tell ourselves and others. All right. So that's the I am. Now, I don't want to offend anybody here. Maybe your I am statements are absolutely congruent with who you are. God bless you. I envy you and I want to be you. All right. But because my I ams don't always match. So this is the talk, right? This is techno-rational. This is the talk we tell ourselves and others. What you did today is your MAI, my actualized I, my actualized I. It's what you did today or yesterday or the day before. So this is who you believe, who you tell yourself you are, but this is how your day went. This is who you really are. So if you yelled at the neighbor, you know, and let the air out of your ex's tires today, and yet you said, here I'm loving, compassionate, and caring, there's probably a gap there, right? Between your techno-rational I and your actualized I. If you said I'm motivated, you know, I'm motivated, I'm driven, and you watch soap operas all day or Oprah all day or TV all day or scrolled through Facebook all day, there's a gap between these two I's. The techno-rational I and the actualized I. Cool. And the third I, this I you want to be 10 years in the future, this I, you know, I learned this saying from Tony Robbins a long time ago, and now that I'm 66, I don't know that I should say it anymore, but he always asked, he asked the people he was interviewing, he used to do the tape of the week in the late 80s, and again, for, you know, Rachel, I'm talking about cassette tapes, the little plastic things that went in a machine and made noise, so you know what they are. Okay, thanks. I was feeling bad, right? Not 8-tracks, I'm talking about cassettes. And he did a cassette of the week, I got mine, and he would always interview people, and at the end of the interview, he'd ask them how they wanted to be remembered. After they died, how do they want to be remembered, right? So that's this piece here, I am. Now, I was going to put in a third-party perspective on your eyes and say, okay, when other people are talking about what do they say? She is, and fill it in. But boy, we'd really be mind reading, wouldn't we? And that would be inappropriate. It'd be fun as hell, but it would be inappropriate. Like, you know, when I wrote this out, if I asked myself, what did my wife think I did from waking up till 8 and from 8 till 12 and from 12 till 4 and 4 to 8? And what did I really do? Right? There's a gap there too. But, and it's certainly here, what do other people think about me? There'd be a huge gap. But again, it's mind reading. We don't know what they actually think. But when you say I am in the future and you live that, you'll probably get a higher correlation that that's what people will say about you 10 years from now, or how they'll remember you. So our 3 I's, this is these two form our present self, right? The techno-rational story we tell ourselves and others about who we are, I am. I pick on people. I hope there is nobody here who takes offense, but I have a hard time when my clients have learnings doing timeline therapy when they say I am the light, because I don't understand it, right? I just don't. It's me. I know it's me personally, but I get a little scratchy. But anyways, this is the self that we experience right here. This is what we think we are, and this is what we actually are by virtue of the walk. This is our walk. And are we walking the talk? Or are we just talking the talk? And when we work with ourselves, because I think it's good to do self-work, I don't know, I think that'd be important, or we're working with clients, this incongruity right here can be bloody hard on people, right? And if you combine what others think of us, right? And we know that what they think of us isn't true, even though we might say it, but by our behavior, we are somebody else, right? We are somebody else by our behavior. That creates a huge internal conflict in us. And our values, getting our values aligned, letting go of the past, becoming present and getting our values aligned allow us to achieve that I in the future. And that's my MFI. The M stands for my, and I know what Lee's thinking. The F stands for future. You're right, Lee. The F stands for future. My future I. So as a coach, when we do value elicitation, alignment, conflict resolution, my goal as a coach to make sure that this techno-rational I that my client tells me and their actualized I are congruent, and that collectively it'll move them to their future, their desired future. Now, this fits in every school of traditional NLP because we always start with the present state, the desired state, and then the pathway in between, right? Present state, desired state. How are we going to get there? And values are a key piece. So I don't know what you guys can see, but like I have a stack of books on values here tonight. So for the two Lyns here, who else is here that doesn't normally hear me prattle on? The two Lyns here, my passion is to read outside of NLP, looking for other thought leaders who are corroborating what we know is possible with NLP. So Jim Quick wrote this book, Limitless. Jim Quick had a brain injury when he was a young kid, told he couldn't learn, was learning impaired. He's gone on to be one of the leading speakers of our time, right? And this is his book, Limitless. And he has a section here on values. And interesting, I don't know Jim Quick personally, by work or personally, but I'm thinking he's NLP trained. Either that or the language spills over naturally.
He is NLP trained, but if he did trainer's training, there is no format in that book, let me tell you.
Yeah. So there you go. There's because here he is talking about the hierarchy of values on page 120 of the book. And I'm going to start with reading his thoughts here because I think it's important. You can set up the most well thought out habits, but if your values are not in line with the ultimate goal, you're not going to do it. For example, if someone who wants to remember people's names should value relationships and their connection to other people, not just a memorization exercise. Your behavior has to support your values in some way, or there is no drive for it. And our values have a hierarchy to them. If I asked you what's the most important to you in your life, you might tell me family. So here we go. He's actually using the NLP language that we use in our school of NLP. And he goes on to talk about values need to be prioritized. Each value builds on and contributes to the other. And that's why we elicit them, we ordinal them, we clean up the move away from, move towards, and then we get them in a hierarchy that supports the client moving forward. One's values tend to not change from year to year unless you experience life conditions that change them. So when you do an NLP breakthrough, those are life conditions that may change your values. If I'm working with a person has agoraphobia, and we let go of the agoraphobia, that's a life-changing event where they used to not be able to go out and now they go out. Their values are going to change, most assuredly. Most assuredly, their values will change. If I'm dealing with somebody who's been dealing with chronic pain and we alleviate the chronic pain by doing emotional healing, presupposing that they've waited long enough that all physical healing has happened and they still have chronic pain, then it has an emotional connection to it. That's a life-altering event, right? That's a life-altering event. So values will change. When we're unaware of our values and the values of those people closest to us, it creates space for conflict. Discord usually results from values conflicting. We see this in couples often, and I'm going to touch on value levels in a moment. We see this in couples often, where when you get together, most assuredly, people who get together, and I'm talking spiral dynamics language now, people couple either in the very specific neurology of each other, so they're at the very same, or at least they're in the same either communal or self-actualizing. You rarely, if ever, see a value level 4, which is a systems-based person who is about the commune, mate with a hardcore value level 5 who is all about self-actualization. Odds and even numbers in spiral dynamics, those two actually grate on each other. So you very rarely. Most of the time you see people of the same value level connect and marry because they see each other, they hear each other, they experience each other, they see themselves as a reflection of the person they're in. Then over time, one of them may move and grow and change value levels. So if a couple get together and they're both value level 4 systems-based community people, teachers, doctors, nurses, anybody who's in an ism, Catholicism, anybody who's in a system, the education system, the highway system, the political system, these are all value level 4 systems. And then one of the partners, for whatever happens, their neurology starts opening to value level 5, which is self-actualization in the realm of entrepreneurs by and large. Their work ethic will change, their belief structure will change. It was amazing. My wife Tara comes from a very value level 4 family. Her father was a school principal his whole career. Her mom taught Suzuki music. Suzuki's a hard system, right? And Tara grew up in that. Her sisters are still isms. Her mom and dad are still hardcore systems, very successful, by the way. It doesn't slow down the success, it's just where they are successful. And we're having dinner at our house, and they are talking about the system needing to support certain people in certain ways. And Tara said, I think some people need to stand up and become more self-supportive. And her whole family, you could hear their vertebrae snapping as they turned to look at Tara because they couldn't understand the words coming out of her mouth because she wasn't part of their think anymore. She was talking value level 5, maximum, people have to literally eat what they kill. The system can't provide for everybody. You got to go out, you got to hunt it, you got to work for it, you got to earn it. And that's just a thing. It's not a good or bad. And so when you know value level systems, you don't have to see good and bad in thinking. You understand where they are in a value hierarchy, right? You understand where they are in a value hierarchy. And so, in our work as NLP coaches, I encourage you all to do a master prac and do a master prac where they teach value levels. Or you can go online and do a spiral dynamics course or listen to Mind Hackers. Any or all. Lynn, you have a question?
Yeah, I think of spirals in terms of the colors. So when you say 4 and 5, it's like I think I'm tracking, but I don't know.
I don't know what the color of 4 and 5 is because I always learned it numerically because I can't remember the colors. I think it's blue and yellow. 4 is the 4th level up, so I might be able to find
That's
it.
blue.
Yeah, and then the realm of entrepreneurs is the next one. I think it's yellow, is it not?
Orange.
Orange. There you go. I was close. I'm colorblind. Yeah, so blue and orange. The bottom line being those alternating ones dislike each other normally. They grate on each other.
Yeah, and fives have a hard time leaving the realm of five.
Yeah, and fives don't like 4 and 6s, and 6 don't like 5s and 7s, and of course 4s don't like 3s and 5s, and yeah, cool. So our values can be a source of conflict inside ourselves, but in our relationships, right? In our relationships. And you see this in our political system, where in Canada, our Conservative Party is more a self-actualizing ideology. Our Liberal Party is more a community-based ideologically. And we have a very left group of parties, NDP and Green, that are very community-based and less about the self-actualizing of individuals, right? So values can be greatly influential to ourselves and others. I highly recommend this book if you have time, Master Your Mind Power. Steph and Shay used to work for Tad James. They were Tad and Adriana's lead trainers. They've now gone out on their own. This is quite a beautiful book. It's a beautiful book because they talk about things and then they give you ways to take action. I hate books that are written without take actions. So here in Steph and Shay's book, they always have a mind power exercise. So they describe a situation, they describe how to overcome it, and then they give you a methodology to do it. It's quite well written. And they have a whole section. They start their book, chapter 1 is values and principles, right? Values and principles, critical to where we are. Now, Adriana James, and you'll love this one, Lynn in Texas. This is Adriana James' book on spiral dynamics. This is her interpretation of spiral dynamics. They actually studied with Beck, not with Graves, but with Beck, and did this. It's a bit of a beast of a book, 800 pages, but it goes in depth. But I want to read from this book, Adriana's. Our individual values are the determining factors for our motivation and behaviors, and therefore our ways of interaction and communication. And this is simply because only individually, not in teams are we generally taught, can we develop our individual consciousness and thus exert a positive influence in the world around us, right? So values are the determining factors of our motivation, our behaviors, and therefore our ways of interacting, right? And then from Tad James, you know, the book. Lynn in Texas, are you trained in timeline therapy? This? No?
No, I had a couple sessions with Tara. I got the book, and I have thinking about taking your online.
Right on. Talk to Lynn Healy, and she'll give you feedback about how is it going. Okay, so values. Our values are in our unconscious mind. They're actually filters, and we have a number of filters, right? Meta programs are filters, values are filters, beliefs are filters. Values are the second most unconscious filter, and it is the first filter where there is content inside the filter. Values have content inside the filter. Our values are how we decide whether our actions are good or bad or right or wrong. And our values are how we decide about how we feel about our actions. They provide the primary motivating force behind our actions. They're arranged in a hierarchy, with the most important one typically being at the top and lesser ones below that. And because each of us have varying models of the world and an internal representation of how that world is, our values are interrelated with our model of the world. When we communicate with ourselves or someone else, if our model of the world conflicts with our values or their values, there is likely to be conflict. So here we have Jim Quick, Tad and Adriana James talking about the importance of values because they're deeply unconscious. So beyond the realm of your thought, they're beyond your reticular activating system. And if this is how you behave, this is what you did, but you believe you're this person. And these are both expressions of values. When you say I am, you're actually expressing your value set, I believe. And when you walk, you're expressing your value. What's most important to you? So if you value family and you're one of the North American families that doesn't sit down for dinner anymore, Phil Zimbardo from Stanford would question whether you truly value family. Right? He's Sicilian. You got to break bread together to understand family. Right? So our behavior, and here we can have the conflict. Richard Bandler, of course, Bandler, if any of you guys have had the good pleasure of training with him or have watched him, Richard Bandler says values are those things we don't live up to. Our values are those things we don't live up to. So here we go. I am, I do. Right? I am, but I do. Right? And values are the ideas in which we're willing to invest time, energy, and resources to either achieve or avoid. I could have a value that I don't want to get hurt, so I avoid certain situations. I could have a value, I don't want to get sick, which I do have. I also have a value that I want to stay happy. My value that says I don't want to get sick allows me to stay away from lifestyles that produce illness. My desire, my value to be healthy moves me towards exercise, diet, and rest. Right? And managing my negative emotional states. They're both values. And values are what people typically move away from or towards, as according to meta programs. They are our attractions or repulsions in life. And here's a word. They are generalizations about our deep belief systems. So you could value love, and it is a generalization about your beliefs about love. Love is pink, love is temporary, love is permanent, love is whatever. And then the generalization is value. I value love. But you could have a whole group of beliefs around love. Its construct, its shape, its form. And again, here's the James is saying values can change with context. That is, you probably have certain values about what you want in a relationship, and you have different values potentially in what you want in a business. Your values about what you want in one or another area may be quite different. And actually, if they're not, it's possible that you may have trouble with both. Since values are context related, they can also be state related. So in certain contexts, we're happy, in certain contexts, we're sad, right? We may be calm in a certain place. We may be animated in another. So our values will move with that. Values are less related to state than beliefs are. I'll share one more with you.
Alan, where were you reading from for that?
Timeline therapy. Timeline therapy. That was page, I don't know, 6 or 7. And this book is by two old timers in the NLP community, Tom Hobeyer and Tom Dotes. And it's called NLP the Essential Guide. I get a kick out of this book. I like it. Again, it's a monster, right? It's like, woohoo, big. You see all my books are tabbed. And it's written differently. It's written conversationally. It's not written academically. for those people who like that style of reading, it's quite enjoyable. It's not fact, action. It's sort of ethereal and winding. And here we say the title of this section is Look in the Mirror. Who you are today and how you got to be that way. And I like this expression, and Larissa, this might trigger something, a memory of your training. It's like each of us is an onion that has lots of layers. Our outside layer is what other people most often see. So if I had asked you to put a word after you are as seen through the other people, you would have been describing the outer layer of the onion, right? What we look like, where we live, and how we behave, the outer layer. As these layers are peeled away, we learn more about our core selves. Beneath the papery onion skin, we'd find our capabilities, our beliefs, our values, and perhaps even our spirituality. All right. So I do all of that as a precursor to talk about your values, because again, my personal experience is we didn't get enough time in any of the training courses I was on, because there is no time. Values could be a 4-day course all on their own, and their impact, right? And working with them, managing them. So here we have this concept about values. And this comes from Lynn in Texas. You may recognize this from Spiral Dynamics. The world value system that is carried out talks about it. And ironically, the countries with the highest rankings in the world value system are all Scandinavian. I find that interesting. Finland, Norway, Sweden, Denmark. And in North America, the places with the highest value levels scoring is along the Canadian border, where the populations are highly Scandinavian. It's the wildest thing. The highest areas of human capital. It's just a fascinating thing to me. And the people who contribute most to peacekeeping per capita are the Scandinavian countries. Norway contributes to peacekeeping more than any other nation on earth per capita. Anyway, so here we have traditional values like family, marriage, certainly no assisted suicides down here, right? Life goes on. Traditional values, these are secular rational values. It has to make sense. Techno-rational, secular rational values. And then this is a continuum from left to right, is from survival to self-expression. From survival to self-expression. And you can map the spirals on here, Lynn, as we go up. So when you're talking to one of your clients, I think it's important to know where they are on a cartography like this in your own mind. My clients come in, they're in survival mode. My clients are survival mode. I do crisis intervention. You may be coaching entrepreneurial value level people who are mastering the art of self-expression. You might be working with people who have got it all and you know, they're on some spiritual enlightenment journey out here. Well, how we approach their values and how we coach them is radically different, right? What I say and do for the people here is radically different from there. I need to be, as a coach, if I'm going to practice the presupposition of NLP, and I wish I knew them off by heart, but whatever one behavioral flexibility is, the law of requisite variety, it's got to be like 9 or 10. I need to have the behavioral flexibility to sit and hold space for somebody, whether they're in their survival or someplace on that continuum all the way up to self-expression. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? As a coach, you need to be able to have that behavioral flexibility. And you have to have the behavioral flexibility, no matter where they are, from traditional values to secular rational values, to be able to hold space for them. And it goes back to respecting the other person's model of the world. This is a lens or a way of seeing other people's model of the world, is it not? It's just one of many. It's not, there is no the. You guys, I know I don't like the word the. There is no the. That presupposes the only one. But this is a lens to consider. And when we're talking about values, this is what the World Values Survey talks about. Where are people? Are they in traditional or secular rational on that scale? And where they are from survival to self-expression.
Could I ask a question about that,
Who said that, Larissa?
Larissa? Of course.
Of
I'm
course.
asking. Okay, so if they're coming to see us, even if they're on the more self-expressive side, wouldn't they be in survival mode essentially, at least in the part of their life they're seeing us for?
Not at all.
Why would they be seeing us? Like, can you give me an example? I know you said if someone's on the self-expression side, but even the people that are successful and have most of their life together, I've never come across anyone that's been like really far on that self-expression scale at the beginning of the breakthrough, because they're so at effect.
Well, they can be at effect. Survival is survival, though. I dealt with a young woman who owned a Honda car dealership. She wasn't in survival. She wasn't trying to survive physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially. She was surviving. She was stuck. The stuck state was somewhere here, right? She knew there was more. Wait, there's more. Hello. Right? She, as she left survival, and she'd actually gone through a divorce, she had resources, she had holidays, she had friends, she had wine, she had everything, but she knew there was more, right? Okay, well, that's where we met right here.
That helps. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then some people are wrestling with their own relationship with God or creator or whatever, right? And they'll be somewhere in here. And because we work so content free, I don't have to get into the content to create change, but I need to know where they are so I can respect their model of the world. And you hear that, all right? All right. So,
Alan,
yeah.
sorry. So I wrote my handwriting, spiral dynamics. I wrote Vaucus, I think, and then Adriana James, but I'm not finding the book. Do you mind just spelling it out?
Spiral dynamics. If you look up Beck, spiral dynamics.
Oh, Beck. Okay.
And then Adriana James wrote a book, Values.
Oh, the values. That's why I misread it. Okay.
There you
So
go.
the Beck is Don Beck, right? Is that the one?
Yep.
I think Beck. Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, mind hackers or brain hackers, I always get it wrong. There are a couple who do systems models analysis, and the pair of them are brilliant. And they talk about Enneagram, they talk about systems-based thinking, they talk about spiral dynamics. They're brilliant. And they have a podcast that's worth its weight in gold to listen to. Worth its weight. When I don't want to get drawn into all the COVID bullshit, I listen to one of theirs. Kind of makes me feel happy. Right, Tara? Makes me feel happy. All right.
Hey, Alan, would you please repeat the podcast? I just missed that. What's it called?
I think they're called Mind Hackers.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. If they're not, ask Tara. She listens to them all the time, Ashley.
Got it.
I let Tara sift through all the podcasts and get through all the ugly ones, and I just listen to the ones Tara recommends, right? I've got a filtering system. All right. So you guys, everybody knows how to elicit values. Please say yes. Everybody put up their hand, please say yes. Yeah, everybody knows how to, Lynn doesn't, but I understand that. And so when we elicit a series of values from a person, we have a list, right? And then they rank them in the order. So we elicit a list and we get this random list of values. You might be 20 words on it, might be 30 words on it. And we get them to rank them. And then once they're ranked, we need to look at them. We need to look at them because some people are moving can have a towards and away conflict in their value. And what do I mean by that? If simultaneously they're moving away from the pain of poverty and towards the value of being wealthy or having financial abundance, that value, although they seem to support each other, they're actually sequential. One has to happen before the other, right? We move out of poverty rarely, unless you win the lottery, do you go from in poverty to financial abundance. And the history of those people isn't good, so we don't recommend it. But normally the move from in poverty out, even if you do some amazing course online where you start earning $5,000 a month in 90 days, there's still a sequence that has to happen. So we call that a sequential conflict or a sequential incongruity. They want to move away from poverty and they want to be financially abundant. And their brain is working overtime on both of those. Another sequential incongruity might be if a person was overweight, they could be focused on, I don't want to be overweight and I want to be marathon ripped simultaneously. Well, that is a sequential incongruity. You can't have both simultaneously. There has to be a series of steps you go through. And that's an often one, because when people come to us, and again, I apologize to those of you who work with high achievers and you've got people who come in and they're functioning high and they want a life coach to help them tweak. All right. That's not where I work, right? And by choice. So some of you might have high performance clients who you're tweaking with. Some of this, what I'm saying, doesn't apply directly to them. But so the people who are stuck, whether it's weight issues, money issues, trauma issues, life issues, they'll always be trying to move away from the pain they're in. And rarely are they even seeing the opportunity for pleasure or abundance. People who are really stuck in are focused on what they don't want. When you ask them what they want, what's important to them, they'll tell you what they don't want, right? When I ask people who are dealing with serious weight issues, what do you want? I don't want to be fat. I don't want to be obese. I don't want to have high cholesterol. What do you want? Well, I don't want to be in the hospital all the time. I don't want the diabetes. Okay, what do you want? And they give me a bunch more don't wants, right? Sooner or later, my job as a coach to get them moving towards what they do want. Health, vitality, whatever that means for them. Physical abundance, right? So some people, so that was a sequential incongruity where they want to move from this state to that state instantaneously, and yet it's going to take a sequence to get there. The second kind of incongruity when you're doing values is what's called a simultaneous incongruity, where the two things they want are going in opposite directions. They're both towards, but they're opposite ways. Most of us who are in business for ourselves, all us coaches, know that to earn money in our jobs, we're sacrificing some time, right? We're working it. And if concurrently, we want to have freedom is a high value. So we want to have financial abundance or having our own job and have freedom. They're both moved towards values. And yet they're simultaneously incongruent in this moment. I don't have freedom. I have clients, I have students, I have obligations, right? Unless I define my freedom as my freedom to choose all of that, which is a different form of freedom. But normally that's not the freedom people are talking about. The freedom is to do what they want to do, when they want to do it, wherever they want to do it. So that's an example of a simultaneous incongruity where they're moving. It's a towards incongruity, but they can't have both at the same time. That's a parts integration. Part of me wants to have freedom. Part of me wants to have financial abundance. Integrate those two parts, right? Some of you may be struggling with that.
Alan, do you mind if I ask you a question on this?
Yeah, go ahead.
So is that almost a reframing in a way though? Because if you're coaching a client and let's say their time is split 50-50 and I don't know, I guess you do a parts.
Well, part of them wants to have freedom. Part of them wants to have abundance, financial abundance in this moment. And so to get financial abundance, most people I know put in time and effort.
Right.
It constrains their freedom. So they're both moved towards, they're both good values, but to have them simultaneously, there's an incongruity.
But
And
in
it
other words,
causes
yeah,
conflict. If every day I come to work and I try to build my business, but I also have a value where I want to be free, I'm going to have an internal conflict that eats up
right.
emotional bandwidth.
But so does the process end up just reframing it as these are both essential things and they're mutually inclusive instead of?
Well, remember the essence of a parts integration is everything has a higher purpose. So when we integrate those two parts, the part that has the value of freedom and the part that has the value of financial abundance, sooner or later, when we ask for what purpose, we'll come to a higher purpose. And at that point, they'll integrate and come into the whole. And now we have wholeness and choice, right? I'm going to work really hard and then I'm going to go for a week to Belize. Now I have freedom, I have financial abundance, and I have choice. But until we integrate them at their highest purpose, they'll be conflicting. You know?
So how often, once the integration is complete, how often do you see that there is actually a change in what takes place, or does it typically stay the same?
Every time and instantaneously.
Yeah.
Every time. When you do a parts integration, it's instantaneous and 100%. I've never, ever, I've done hundreds of them. Tara's done more, and we've trained over 150 people who have done hundreds. So parts integrations always work. When you integrate two parts and the person actually allows them to get to a higher consciousness, it's how I got rid of my migraines. And that's why I'm such a hardcore, it works every time.
Thank you.
My migraines tried to keep me safe from the world. Safety is a good thing, safe from my father in the world. But part of me wanted to have a health paradigm that was free of migraines. That's a friggin' huge parts conflict. And my migraines won whenever they wanted to. They controlled the shop. When I integrated the two, when I got to the highest cause of both wanted me to live a vibrant, healthy life. Now they're part of the same health paradigm. I've had one migraine in 31 years. Right? So it's instantaneous. And mine's lasted 31 years. That's anecdotal. All right. So there's also a simultaneous incongruity where you have two move away from values. Right? Where a value is something like abandonment. I don't want to be abandoned. And a value, they could be, I don't want to be intimate. So two, I don't want to be intimate, but I don't want to be abandoned. Those are two move away from, which are simultaneous incongruent. If you move away from intimacy, you're going, and it doesn't have to be physical, the very word into me see. If you're going to have intimacy, understanding, see the reflection of yourself in an other, and you move away from abandonment, you're setting up a bad conflict. And again, we clear these up with parts integration or timeline therapy, because our values, you'll remember that we clear up most issues with values using timeline therapy, because what we value, we decided to value. When you come out of the womb, you don't have these values. Somewhere between your birth and now, you decided to value what you value. Belief based on your beliefs, your thoughts, and your environment. That's the beautiful thing about timeline therapy, is that it changes the belief at the decision point. Cognitive therapy wants you to change the decision by thinking differently, by deciding to think differently in this moment. which can work. Affirmations are asking you to try and change your belief by expressing an affirmation over and over and over again, a story you're telling about yourself until it may be fact, right? And the NLP intervention into belief change is a changing of belief in this moment using submodalities. The timeline therapy, I think, is the most beautiful because it goes back to the decision point. Where did I decide to believe I wanted this value in my life? And people who have been really, really hurt, whether it's in relationships or life or traumas or whatever, their values that they appear in our office with emanated from that traumatic experience. Because remember, when we have a traumatizing event, we make decisions about our world. When we have a significant emotional event, an adverse childhood event, we make a whole bunch of decisions about our world. So we can clear the adverse event or the negative emotional event so it no longer triggers negative emotions, but that doesn't guarantee we undo all the decisions that were made about the world. Now I joke, and I'm joking, I'm not well, I am an asshole, but I'm joking here. I hear kids. You know, if a woman was accosted by a blonde-haired man with a ponytail and a baseball cap at night in a park, we could clear that event so that she was no longer triggered negatively by that event, by the recall of it or by the retelling of it. But she may still have decided that being in parks at night is dangerous, or that blonde-haired men with ponytails are dangerous, which I actually think is true. But I'm joking, okay? But she could have a whole bunch of decisions that are just irrational. So even if the trauma is cleared and she's walking down the street and sees a blonde-haired man with a ponytail and a baseball cap, she could decide to cross the street because she's taking a decision from the past and allowing it to impact her behavior in the future now, right? So the beauty of timeline therapy, whether it's beliefs or values, it's so concise and so accurate at relieving that decision, allowing us to decide something different, right? And that's how we, you know, that's most of our work at adjusting values is done either doing submodality work, getting the hierarchy right, or doing timeline therapy, getting the move away from, move towards right. There you go. So I'm at 8:15. That means I'm 15 minutes over how I wanted to talk about values. So now that you look at your 3 columns of I's, look at your own 3 columns of I's, and you all have peers here that you can work with, right? You all have people you can reach out to and work with, and that you can now elicit your values and say, are my values is my techno-rational I, the things you say about yourself, right? And your actualization of I, which is your actualization of your values. We walk our talk, the talk and our walk. Are they congruent? If they're not, work with one of your peers and get them overlaid with each other. And you can do it 1 to 2 ways, right? You could do it, I want to get my talk aligned to who I am, or I want to get my behavior aligned to my talk, right? For some of us, our talk is understated, but when we walk very big. Other people are the other way. Their talk is really big, but their walk is small. So it doesn't matter which way the adjustment goes, as long as it's appropriate for the person you're working with. And it is value driven. My techno-rational I and my walking I are value driven. That is the ultimate expression of your values. Do you guys agree? Right? This is evidence-based, behavioral evidence of our values. So if you've got an incongruency between these 2 columns, work with somebody, have it healed, have it fixed. And then how do these values get you to your my future I's? Right? And the values you have today, as you see yourself being this person, and again, all of you have done PACE, there's a personal hard drive in PACE, that exercise. That's a really good exercise in getting really clear about your purpose, who you're going to be. And then the values here, do they align with achieving that? I think when you get that right, presupposing that you've let go all of the baggage, right? All the negative emotions, all the traumas, all the aces that you can at any moment in time. When you get your values aligned so you feel this momentum towards this 10-year eye, that's pretty empowering. I think that would be pretty empowering.